All right, what's going on, guys? Time to go over the AFC quarterback room. If you didn't see my last video, I went over every NFC roster and made predictions for who I think is going to be starting and backing up, and the third string quarterback of every team in the NFC for the NFL. Now I'm going to go over every team in the AFC. Um, let's just get right into it. All right, so first team we're going to look at is the reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, Pat Mahomes is their starting quarterback. He is a legend already. He's probably a Hall of Famer already if he retired today. He is amazing, and the Chiefs will never let him leave. Maybe when he's like an old man, but that's long ways from now. He's got a lot of records to break until then. His backup situation is a little different. Chad Henne won 2 Super Bowls with the team. He's been there since Mahomes was a wee baby in the system. Now he is retiring. He's walking off into the sunset with his 2 rings. He's gone. So they need a new backup quarterback. Now this doesn't exactly work out if the Steelers don't cut him. But I think Mitch Trubisky makes a lot of sense. Mostly because their new O coordinator is Matt Nagy. Like, Matt Nagy was obviously Mitch Trubisky's head coach when Mitch was the starter for the Bears. And he honestly didn't look bad under Nagy. He looked pretty solid. He looked a lot better than he did as a Steelers quarterback, at least. And the Steelers are saying they want to keep Mitch. Which they might. They might keep him. He could stick around as a mentor for Kenny Pickett, but in my head it doesn't make sense. You know, he went there to be the starter. He got pulled back for Kenny Pickett, and does he really want to stick around there as a backup? Maybe. Maybe Mitch is done trying to be a starter. Maybe Mitch doesn't care anymore. Maybe Mitch just wants to take a year off from everything. Who knows? But in my head, he's going to ask for to be released so he can, find an opportunity somewhere else. And I think, well, I think no one with a starting job is going to want him, unfortunately for him. But I see him going to the Chiefs as a huge possibility. You can see Matt Nagy in that Chiefs offense and be like, wow, kind of like how I got my reset with the Bills. I could get another reset with the Chiefs here. Plus, on top of that, they just won the Super Bowl. If he's there for 1 year, he has an opportunity to win a ring as a backup. Who doesn't want to do that? So I think it makes a lot of sense for Mitch to be the new backup for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think it'd be relatively cheap, too. Probably about what Chad Henne was making. I could definitely see that. And then they also have, was it Chris Oladokun, I believe is his name? Chris Oladokun. Not sure how to say that. Let me know if I said it wrong. But yeah, he's their third string guy. He's either still on the roster or they sign him to a futures deal. One of the two. But he's there. They seem to like him, so why not keep him around? Moving right along, we go to the Chargers. I almost said San Diego Chargers, but yeah, LA Chargers. Obviously, they got Justin Herbert. He's going to be their starter for a long time. He's extremely good. He just needs a better O coordinator, in my opinion. Speaking of that, they just got a new O coordinator. They canned Joe Lombardi, and they went with Kellen Moore from the Cowboys. I think that's an amazing hire. I like Kellen Moore a lot, and I think he could take Justin Herbert and this Chargers offense to the next level. Now, that being said, backup quarterback situation. They currently have Chase Daniel. Chase Daniel's a free agent. Joe Lombardi's gone. I could see them moving on from Chase Daniel. There's nothing really wrong with Chase Daniel, though, so I could also see them just re-signing him, keeping it how it is. He's a good backup. He has been for years. But I think he's going to go in a different direction. And I think that opening on the Chargers leaves the perfect space for Cooper Rush to come along with Kellen Moore. Coop has been really good under Kellen Moore's leadership as a backup quarterback, and I think if there's an opening there, Kellen Moore would absolutely love to fill it with Cooper Rush. He could come in and teach up Justin Herbert with the offense, help him get moving real quickly and smoothly. And then if Herbert ever goes down, I think Kellen Moore would be very comfortable with Cooper Rush holding on to that spot. Now, after Cooper Rush, they have another opening because they currently have Easton Stick as their third guy, but Stick is a free agent. Now, again, they could re sign him. I don't think they had any issues with Easton Stick. But, again, new O coordinator, he's probably just going to want to bring in somebody new. So I have Stick leaving, and I have them looking at the incoming rookie group, and I saw Clayton Tune, and I figure, if the Chargers are looking for somebody, why not Tune? Now, there's nothing inherently special about Clayton Tune, but but Tune was very good in college, and he basically shot up the stat sheets. He's kind of like a Bailey Zappi type of guy. So I think there's a decent chance he gets drafted, but I could also see him ending up as an undrafted or undrafted free agent. And I could see Kellen Moore seeing him being like, this guy looks like he could be a really good backup one day. Why not bring him in, teach him up behind Cooper Rush, and maybe he can become our backup after that. Who knows? So I got him getting Clayton Tune, and I like this group right here. So we move on to the Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, they got rid of Derek Carr. I think Josh McDaniels is kind of not a good head coach. Just look at his track record. 10, 12 years ago, however long ago it was, he was with the Broncos. He comes in and totally guts the roster. They look terrible. Everything fails. He gets canned after 2 years. Comes into the Raiders after the Raiders just went to the playoffs with an interim head coach. They look terrible off the gate. Derek Carr immediately the next year asked to get released. He's gone. The roster is literally in the midst of getting gutted. I swear to God, if this happens again, McDaniels should never be touched as a head coach candidate ever again. Because this is ridiculous if this happens again. And it's really unfortunate if it does for the Raiders. But obviously they're looking for a new option. Now, they could look at Aaron Rodgers. We've heard that he's an option for them, but lately I have been reading that the Raiders aren't as high on Aaron Rodgers as previously thought. They kind of seem to be going towards the kind of more reset, but also try to win some games mode. I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. I don't understand them. If Josh Jacobs is gone, I don't know. Whatever. But looking around the league, you can make the obvious connection that Jimmy Garoppolo has with Josh McDaniels. And I think it's a really good spot for Jimmy to land. He wouldn't be overly expensive. He wouldn't be cheap, but he wouldn't be overly expensive as a quarterback option. So they could bring him in, try him out, see how he fits into whatever the heck McDaniels is trying to do on offense. And, if he sticks, great. If he doesn't, they could try to move on next year to maybe a high draft pick or something. I don't know. But I think he makes a lot of sense as their starting quarterback here. Now, they also have Jarrett Stidham. Stidham started some games last year after Derek Carr basically divorced Josh McDaniels. And, he had some up and some down. But ultimately, I think McDaniels really likes this kid. And I think they're definitely going to bring him in. And I think he has the possibility of even starting next year. I think they're definitely going to try to bring in somebody to start over him, or at least to compete with him. But I think he's definitely going to be on the roster. And I think if they sign Jimmy, they'll probably just give it to Jimmy. But they could have a training camp battle between the two as well. Jimmy should win that. But either way. After that, they have Chase Garbers. He was on the roster last year. He's still on the roster. I think he has a futures deal, so he's going to be the third guy there. And yeah, I'm not overly confident in this quarterback room, but I do want to see Jimmy starting somewhere, and this just looked like a good spot that he would get an opportunity to do that. Moving right along, we go to the Denver Broncos. Denver reset. They had a horrible year. Russ looked terrible. He looked like he was completely done. Hopefully that's not the case. I like Russ. I realize he has gotten kind of crapped on over the over the last year. Deservedly so. He looked horrible. He said ridiculous things constantly. I think he's really out of touch is what is the problem. He's been a star for so long. He just looked kind of expected to go in and be that still. I don't know. But he's got some soul searching to do this year. And I think with Sean Payton, he's gonna do it. Sean Payton obviously had Drew Brees for a long time in New Orleans, and under Drew Brees under Sean Payton was a Hall of Famer, an amazing Hall of Famer. After the Chargers gave up on him, so I think Russ has that avenue to come back. Now, Russ is a possible Hall of Famer as well. He was amazing for Seattle for a very long time. He has the stats. He went to 2 Super Bowls, winning one. He is a potential Hall of Fame quarterback. But last year really hurt his case 5 years after, whenever he hangs it up. They're going to look at last year and be like, I don't know. So it's in his best interest to make this season and this contract with the Broncos work. I think he's definitely lost a step. He can't run like he used to. He can't make those crazy plays like he used to in Seattle. I think if he seems like a hard worker, so I think if he works at it, and if Sean Payton gives him a lot of help, which he will, I think he could be a good starting quarterback again next year. Not great. I don't see him ever being great again after last year. I really don't. But I think he can be a good, solid starting quarterback next year for the Broncos. There's also the possibility that they cut him. They would eat a lot of money if they cut him. But with the new coaching staff, maybe Sean Payton bites that bullet. I don't see that happening. I think they're going to give him a shot, but that is an option. After him, they had Brett Rippon last year. They could re-sign him. He wasn't overly terrible for them as their backup, and he started a game or two. But with the new coaching staff, I think they're just going to move on. And I saw Chase Daniel as a free agent from the Chargers, and he just makes too much sense to get brought in as the backup here. You know, the Broncos brought in Joe Lombardi as their O coordinator. Joe Lombardi was Chase Daniel's coach in San Diego. Okay, there's a connection. But then you also look back a little bit further. Sean McVay was Chase Daniel's head coach in New Orleans for a long time. So Chase Daniel has 2 connections. I think it just makes too much sense for them to bring him in as a backup. They both trust him. He's proven in the past that he's a dependable quarterback that can hold down the fort for a few games. So I think it makes a lot of sense for him to come in as their backup. After that, I think Sean McVay is going to want to bring in somebody just in case Russ is really cooked, because he ain't cooking, but he might be cooked. And I was looking at the draft, and they have a couple holes, so I don't think they're going to draft high. Plus, they have Russ on that huge contract, so I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback high. But if we look at the middle rounds, there's one quarterback that stands out. I'm not talking about like 3rd round, 2nd round option, Hendon Hooker and like Tanner Mackey. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about a middle round quarterback that has a lot of juice and could potentially, we'll see how he does at the combine, he could potentially go up the draft boards. But I think Sean Payton could see Jaron Hall from BYU and see a guy that has a little juice and could potentially be his, not really his Drew Brees, but I don't know who's he compared to. He's got a little Gardner Minshew in him, and I think Sean Payton could see this guy and be like, okay, listen, if Russ is cooked, Chase Daniel's my backup quarterback. He's not going to be my starter, but this kid Jaron Hall, he could be a gritty little player for me. He could hop in there and we'll see what he's got. And I could just see Sean Payton really liking Jaron Hall. So I got him as the third guy there, and I'm very comfortable with this group for the Broncos. Now moving on, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. Now the Bengals, I think they're very comfortable with their quarterback room. And I love this pick of Joe Burrow in the snow. I think it's awesome. Joe Burrow is obviously their quarterback. He's been amazing for a few years now. He is uber confident. He's brought the Bengals from nowhere to perennial Super Bowl contenders. He's going to be there for a long time. Their backup situation is pretty set in stone, in my opinion, too. They have Brandon Allen and Jake Browning right now. Brandon Allen's a free agent, but the staff seems to really like him. So I don't see any reason why they wouldn't re-sign him. He's a free agent, but I don't see any reason why they wouldn't re-sign him. I think they're very comfortable with these two as their backups, and I think they're going to roll into the next season with the same group here. So I don't have too much to say about these guys other than they're probably going to be there and they're comfortable. So we're just going to move on. We're going to move to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Ravens obviously are in a huge question mark of a spot right now. Lamar Jackson is a free agent. He hasn't been re-signed. He doesn't have an agent. And we've heard that they're pretty far off in compensation still. I would just be very surprised if Lamar isn't back in Baltimore. I just would be really surprised. I think they're going to come to an agreement and sign him to an extension, and I think he'll be there. Obviously, as each day goes on, the likelihood of that happening gets smaller and smaller, but I still think it's going to happen as of right now. Their backup situation is a little different. Tyler Huntley's a free agent. They like Tyler Huntley a lot, but him making the Pro Bowl kind of hurts his chances of coming back, in my opinion, to the Ravens. Because his agent is going to want him to get paid for being a Pro Bowl quarterback, and the Ravens definitely don't see him as a Pro Bowl quarterback. I don't think anyone in the NFL really does, to be honest, unfortunately for him. But somebody is going to pay him, and I don't think it's going to be Baltimore. So that opens up a spot. Now, they do have Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown started a couple games for him last year, but he looked very not ready. So I don't think they're going to roll with him. They're at least going to bring in competition for him. Now, obviously, their new O coordinator, they moved on from their old one. Their new O coordinator is Todd Monken from Georgia. So I know other people have connected these dots too, but it just makes sense. Like, obviously, they could look for a vet quarterback. Lamar's got a bit of an injury history now, so it would behoove them to look for a veteran quarterback. But I could also see Todd Monken just being like, hey, Stetson is going to be a late round pick because nobody really believes in this guy. Georgia didn't even believe in him. They kept trying to replace him, but he kept winning the job and winning games because that's who he is. He's a winner. So I think Todd Monken is going to really push for Stetson Bennett to John Harbaugh. And Harbaugh is going to be like, hey, you're running this offense. If you really think that he can hop in and win the backup gig day one, let's take him. 5th, 6th round, he'll be there. Let's take him. And I think they're going to draft Stetson Bennett, and I think he's going to immediately win that backup job over Anthony Brown. He's older. I think the game is already slow to him. I think he's fine. I think he'd be able to start day one, honestly. I don't think he'd be good as a day one starter, but I think as a backup, he definitely could win a backup gig day one. And I think the Ravens would be a solid spot with Todd Monken. And I think if Lamar was to go down again next year, or if he wants to hold out or something, I think Stetson could come in and he could end up being another Brock Purdy type guy next year. And the Ravens could pull a Joe Flacco, get rid of Lamar, and go straight to Stetson. Who knows? But, I initially pushed back against this, and I was trying to find somebody else. I thought maybe Jacoby Brissett, maybe, I don't know. I thought a couple different options, but ultimately it does make sense, and I think Stetson Bennett would be a good backup quarterback. So that's what I'm going with for the Ravens. Now, if we move to the Steelers, obviously they have Kenny Pickett. They're going to hope that he puts 2 feet forward and does improves for his sophomore year. So he's going to be back. That's a really bad picture that I picked for that. Oh well. But yeah, Kenny Pickett, he's going to be their starter. Their backup situation, they have currently they have Mitch Trubisky, and I think they have Mason. Yeah, they have Mason Rudolph as their third guy. Mason's a free agent. He's gone. Mitch, they say that they want to re-sign him, so they could keep him around as their backup, like I said earlier. But I just think they're going to end up parting ways. So that leaves 2 open spots for their backups. Now, I was looking around the league, and they're definitely going to want a veteran that can come in and help teach up Kenny Pickett, help him learn the ways of the NFL. So they're definitely going to sign some veteran. It could be Nick Foles. Could be a lot of guys. There's a lot of vets out there. But ultimately, I ended up going with Teddy Bridgewater. Now, Teddy, he's a free agent with the Dolphins. The Dolphins really like him, but every time he touched the ball, he got hurt for them. So I think with their injury concerns with Tua, they just have to move on from Teddy and find somebody that'll be more reliable for them. I do think Teddy might get an opportunity somewhere else in the league because in the past Teddy has started a lot of games and he's looked pretty good as more of a game manager type guy. So there'll be a lot of teams out there that'll look at him as a possible starting option, but ultimately that's not where I went with him. And with the Steelers looking for a solid vet quarterback, I just saw Teddy, and I remember seeing him sitting on the sideline as Tua was starting games, and he just looked happy. He looked comfortable, and I think he's really starting to burrow himself into a backup quarterback role and accept that that's just what he's going to be, and I think he's okay with that. It's a good role. It's a good life as a backup quarterback, honestly. You don't get hit all the time. You sit on the bench. You might play eventually. You get millions of dollars for it. It's a good gig, and I think Teddy's pretty happy with it. So I think if the Steelers, I think he will jump at an opportunity to start, but if he doesn't get it, I think if the Steelers come calling for him to accept like a 2-year backup role for him, I think he would be like, all right, I dig it, I'll do it. And that's what I have him doing. I have him coming and backing up Kenny Pickett, and I think he would be a great second coach for Kenny Pickett, basically, because he's been around, he knows a lot. Now, after Teddy, I don't even know who this guy is off the top of my head. Okay. After Teddy, we just needed a third guy. And Jacob Eason was there. And I don't have any rhyme or reason, really. But Jacob Eason is the third guy I'm going with. I think he's going to be somewhere because teams seem to like him. He seems somewhat skilled. And I think somebody's going to have him around next year. And it just ended up being the Steelers for me this time. Like I said, I don't really have a rhyme or reason for it. He's just here. And I think he could be their practice squad type guy. So that's who I have for the Steelers. Next we go to the Browns. Now, obviously they have Deshaun Watson. He's going to be their starter. They're desperately hoping that he works out with him after giving him a fully guaranteed, stupid contract, in my opinion. I'm not going to say anything more about him or this situation. But after him, They have Jacoby Brissett. He's a free agent currently. I think they do want to re-sign him, but he's going to be peeking around the league. And if you saw my last video, I have him going to Arizona. So I have him leaving. After that, they have Kellen Mond currently as their third string guy. They brought him in from the Vikings, and they seem to really like him. I think they like him enough to where they'd be comfortable moving him up to their backup position. Kellen Mond is very talented, so I think he is capable of being a backup quarterback. He's pretty young, but I think it's about time that he gets a backup role. They definitely could bring in somebody to compete with him, but I have it working out a little different. I have him moving Kellen Mond up, and then I have him looking at the draft, where Malik Cunningham is going to get drafted. He is a very talented quarterback. Last year there were a lot of people that thought he was going to finally make that jump and possibly be considered a first, second round type quarterback, but he just never made that leap. He was consistently decent in his college career. He had bad games, he had good games. He never proved that he was an amazing guy though. But he's very talented, and somebody's going to see this guy and be like, "Wow, I could coach up these skills to be something special." And I just see Kevin Stefanski and the Browns as a possible option for that. Now, he could go really anywhere that there's a quarterback that thinks they can, coach up a quarterback. He could go anywhere. But I was thinking the Browns, Stefanski, if they bring in Malik Cunningham, if Deshaun Watson really looks like he's not himself again next year, Stefanski could try to save his job by saying, "Hey, look, we drafted this Malik Cunningham guy. Next year he could be something special." I don't know, something like that. So I just think it makes a good amount of sense for them to draft him. He'd probably be a later round type quarterback pick anyway, so it wouldn't give up too many resources. But it makes sense for him to be their third guy in my head. So that's what I have for the Brownies. Now we're going to switch gears here and move to Jacksonville. Obviously, they have Trevor Lawrence. He made a huge leap in year 2. Urban Meyer was clearly a terrible coach for him because Doug Peterson, the quarterback whisperer, made Trevor Lawrence look like Trevor Lawrence again. And he looked really good. And he looks like a model in that picture. Their backup situation, they have C.J. Beathard. They just re-signed him. So he's happy to be the backup there. They're happy with him. And then their third string guy, I believe they all had last year as well, right? Let's make sure. Yeah, E.J. Perry. He's the, what school did he go to? He went to one of those really smart schools. He's a smart guy, like Brown or something. I don't remember, Yale. I don't know. He went to one of those schools though. But he is he's kind of like a what's that quarterback's name on the Saints that plays tight end too? I can't remember his name, but he's kind of like he's a guy that they'd like as their third string guy because he can come in and kind of do different things for him. He can use his feet, he can confuse the defense, that type of guy. So I think they like him and they're going to keep him around as their third guy. So quick and easy one for Jacksonville, not too much change. Then we move to the Titans. Now, the Titans, they just changed their offensive coordinator. They canned Todd Downing, and they brought up Tim something. I don't know. They brought up one of their guys from the team. So not too much will change, but hopefully, for their sake, the play calling gets better. Obviously, they have Ryan Tannehill. There has been talk about them walking away from Tannehill just because he didn't look great last year before he got hurt. Well, he might have been hurt the whole time. Realistically, we're not really sure about it, but I don't think they're going to. There's not too many options around the league that you could really consider better than Tannehill, and unless they get Aaron Rodgers, maybe Derek Carr. Is he better than Tannehill? I don't know. Lamar? For sure, Lamar, but I don't think they're going to get Lamar. Um, Barring them getting one of those guys or trading up in the draft, I don't see them walking away from Tannehill. It makes no sense to me. I think they're going to stick with Tannehill, see what he can do with the new offense, and then, come back to the question next year. So I think Tannehill will be back as their starter. And then after that, they have Josh Dobbs. He's a free agent, and they have Malik Willis from last year. Um, like I said, Dobbs is a free agent. Willis last year did not look good. They drafted him in like the third round. He's very talented, and I think they still think that he could be somebody someday. So they're not going to move on from him. But just how bad he did last year, they're definitely going to bring in somebody that can compete with him to be their backup. I think they do like Josh Dobbs. They could move in a different direction and bring in somebody else. They could definitely do that. I'm not saying they won't, but I think that they really like what they saw from Dobbs last year. He started like 4 or 5 games. He looked pretty decent as a backup. He's very smart. He's literally one of the smartest guys in the NFL. Not even the smartest quarterback. He's one of the smartest guys in the NFL. And he sees the field well. He knows where to go with the ball. And I think he could be a really good backup quarterback. I also think he's going to be a coach one day. I think it was the Steelers last year or a couple of years ago were thinking about retiring and starting as their like quarterback coach or something like that. I read that somewhere. I don't know. But I think he could definitely be a coach one day. Take the Davis Webb route, the Kevin O'Connell route, But or is it Kyle O'Connor? I don't know. But as of right now, I think the Titans are going to stick with him as their backup. I think they really like him. I think he's a great influence for Malik Willis. And I think, why not? He also has alopecia, which I know you can't tell from my hair, but I also have alopecia. I get like patches randomly. So I have a lot of respect for this guy. But yeah, I think he's going to be their backup quarterback again. And I really like him as a backup quarterback until he becomes a coach one day. I think he's going to be a head coach one day. So keep an eye on that face because you might see him in like 10 years as a head coach. But yeah, so that's what I have for the Titans. Nothing changing, which some people might not like. Some people might want change, but, that's what I got. So now we move on to the Indianapolis Colts, and I have a big move for them. Obviously, things did not work out at all for the Colts. Everybody got fired. They got a new staff now. They hired Shane Steichen from the Eagles. Who did he bring in as the O coordinator? Yeah, they got Shane Steichen, and he brought along Jim Bob Cooter from the Jaguars. Now, I took a peek at the Jags roster, but they don't have anybody. They re-signed Beathard, and they don't have anybody. But if you look at Philly's roster, Gardner Minshew being the backup there, and that is a blurry pick of Gardner Minshew. I should have done better, but Gardner Minshew, I think, makes a lot of sense for Steichen to bring to the Colts. They could bring him over and tell him like, hey, you're going to be the starting quarterback here. They got Matt Ryan, they got Nick Foles. I think both of them are getting cut. Both of them could retire, for all we know. I think they're both gone, though. They're going to move on. So I think that he could bring in Gardner Minshew and be like, hey, this is your job to lose. And Minshew would love to hear that, and he would come to Indianapolis. They also have Sam Ellinger, but he didn't look great in his opportunities last year. So he's still on his rookie contract, so he'll stick around, but I don't see him playing, really. And then after that, I know a lot of people have been mocking this and talking about this happening, but it really makes just a ton of sense. I think Steichen would want to do this. So I think they're going to trade up with the Bears, like 4 spots or whatever it is, and trade up to that first pick and pick whichever quarterback Steichen wants. And that is a big question. Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud will both be there. And who knows which one Steichen would want. Me personally, I think C.J. Stroud would be the better pick. But Bryce Young, looked really amazing in college. He's just so small. And like, I get it. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Drew Brees were smaller quarterbacks, but Bryce Young's even smaller. He would be the smallest quarterback to ever start. I don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's true. He's he's very small and he's very slim. He's like 180 pounds. He's like me. If I was I would get ripped in half if I was a quarterback in the NFL. So I think that's going to scare a lot of teams away. But Shane Steichen coming from the Eagles, I think Bryce Young really matches his coaching style for with Jalen Hurts. I don't think he would have to change much. Um, so I have the Colts moving up and drafting Bryce Young first overall. Now it could easily be C.J. Stroud, but I think Bryce Young just makes sense for Shane Steichen's offense. Um, he's extremely good on his legs. He has a really good arm. He can make all the throws. He was very accurate. He did everything. He was amazing for Bama. And Steichen could just see this guy and be like, wow, yes, I want him. Steichen doesn't seem like a guy that's going to hold being small against you, in my opinion. So I think Bryce Young makes a lot of sense for the Colts. And then I think, they might have a little training camp battle. Minshew could start day one. Honestly, they might. I could really see this happening. I could see them drafting Bryce Young, starting Gardner Minshew, and being like, Bryce, you got to put on like 20, 30 pounds before we're rolling you out there as the starter. So Gardner's going to start as you put on the weight because we don't want you to go out there and get hurt immediately. So I could actually really see that happening. And then Gardner Minshew, look at that smile. He'd be smiling just like that because he'd be starting games for the Colts. um, but yeah, I could also see them starting Bryce Young day one, and I could easily see him getting hurt, and then Minshew also starting a lot of the season. So either way, get ready to see Gardner Minshew starting for the Colts. But yeah, let's move on. Next, we got the Texans, and as you can see, I have the other quarterback going to them. Now, the Texans, obviously 2 years in a row, they canned their coach. They weren't happy. I think they knew from the get-go that David Culley and Lovie Smith were not going to last. I do not understand why they canned David Culley. That still doesn't make sense. Maybe they had some sort of weird disagreement. Honestly, I could see them saying, David Culley, like, we want you to lose games, and him being like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, and then they can him. I could see that happening. Speculation, whatever. Either way, they moved on. They brought in DeMeco Ryans, finally a guy that they're going to stick with. They obviously love him. The whole city of Houston loves DeMeco Ryans. He's an amazing coach. We'll see how he does as a head coach. But he brought along the 49ers passing game coordinator, I believe he was. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Yeah, Bobby Slowick. Yeah, so they're bringing him from the 49ers. So I've seen a lot of people matching Jimmy Garoppolo with the Texans. I don't see how that makes any sense. It doesn't make sense to me at all. They have Davis Mills. I don't see why they would sign Jimmy unless they really don't like Davis Mills. But I could see Davis Mills as a perfect bridge quarterback, backup quarterback. So I think they're just going to keep Davis Mills there. So I don't think Jimmy G is going to be an option. And then obviously they have the second overall pick. It seems almost guaranteed that they're going to either get Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud here, whichever one doesn't go first overall, unless they trade up, which I don't think they're going to do. I think they're happy with whichever one falls to them. But I seriously think in the way that I did this, with Bryce Young going first, I think they would be absolutely ecstatic to have C.J. Stroud fall into their laps. So that's what I have here. I have C.J. Stroud falling into their laps. I have Davis Mills rolling in as their backup. I honestly think he'd kind of just be okay with that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know much about Davis Mills, but I think he'd kind of just be okay backing up C.J. Stroud after the past few years getting creamed in that offense. And he's still on his rookie contract, so I think C.J. Stroud would be starter day one. Even Bryce Young would probably be starter day one too, with Davis Mills backing him up. But I got C.J. Stroud starting, and then Their third guy, they currently have a couple guys on their roster. They have Driscoll and Kyle Allen. Jeff Driscoll and Kyle Allen. Now, Kyle Allen looked pretty bad. I think they're both free agents too. Driscoll might not be, but Kyle Allen looked pretty bad. I think he's gone. And Jeff Driscoll, they tried to get cute with him. He was running around a little bit and doing some trick stuff. But he got he got switched to a tight end a couple of years ago. I thought he was like done as a quarterback. So I think they're probably just gonna get somebody else. I don't think they don't have any connection to Driscoll. I think he's gone. And again, Bobby Slowick and Demeco coming from the Niners. I was looking at the roster. They had Josh Allen on the roster last year. He didn't start. He played in the championship game. He didn't look great, and he got hurt, but he still played, and he's got a lot of experience. He's played for like near half the league, and I could see Slowick just being like, "Hey, Josh, you want to come in as like our third string quarterback over here? You could help me teach the other guys the system, and in a pinch, we might need you." And I think Josh Johnson, after the career he's had, would be totally happy with doing that. So that's what I have. I have Josh Johnson coming in, and he's being like older too. He could teach up Stroud a lot. I'm not saying Davis Mills couldn't. He's a vet at this point, basically. But Josh Johnson, with all that experience, could be the like third string coach type guy. So yeah, that's what I have for them, and I'm pretty comfortable with that group for the Texans. And I think with C.J. Stroud, the Texans could actually, depending on what they do in free agency, I think they could realistically be pushing for a playoff spot in that division if they get C.J. Stroud. I like C.J. Stroud a lot. I think he's gonna put the league on fire next year, wherever he lands, and it's gonna be great. Switching it up a little, we're gonna go to Buffalo. I love that picture of Josh Allen. I love Buffalo. Yeah, Josh Allen. Obviously, he's their starting quarterback. He was a little less Josh Allen-y last year with the switch to Ken Dorsey, but he's still really good. He just needs to clean it up a little bit next year if they want to make their next step towards the Super Bowl, But yeah, he's obviously their starter. And then after him, they got Case Keenum and Matt Barkley. Barkley's still on contract, so I don't see. And apparently, I think it's Sean McDermott that really likes him. So, I think they're going to stick with him. And then Case Keenum, I don't know. I saw a video of Case Keenum like playing a prank on Josh Allen, and he just looks like he is so happy in Buffalo. I don't think he's going to sign anywhere else. I think he's going to come back as their backup again. If he gets a starting opportunity, he'll probably leave, but that's not going to happen. So I think they're just going to roll with the same crew again and hope that Dorsey and the offense does a little better. So that was quick, but we're going to move on to the Dolphins. Now this one is different. This one's a little tough. Now obviously they have Tua. Mike McDaniel says all the good things about Tua. He loves him. He's a starting quarterback. He's going to be amazing. It's just those dang injury concerns. And, Tua is great when he is in. He's real accurate. He's not amazing, but he's really good. And I think he could take this team to playoff victories. But those injury concerns are real. People really were saying that he could possibly retire due to concussions because he had some really bad concussions, obviously, in his career, and he's still young. And he's the only lefty, so we need him. we need more lefties in the league. But yeah, Tua will be back as a starter. He said as much. They just definitely need to bring in somebody in case Tua gets hurt again. Because he could have a concussion in the preseason and just be done. You never know. With a guy like Tua, that's always a possibility now. Now, they have Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson. I think they do really like Skylar Thompson, but I think it was pretty apparent that he's not ready. He was kind of just thrown into the fire. So I think they're going to want to bring somebody else in. And Teddy, as talented as he is, also proved to be injury prone. Excuse me. So I think they're going to move on from Teddy. And I was looking around the league, and I think they'll definitely want like a savvy vet type. And there were a couple guys that I was thinking about. Jacoby Brissett came up. Sam Darnold was an option. A couple other guys I was looking at, but ultimately I went with a guy that I was struggling to find a spot for in Andy Dalton. Now, Dalton could stay with the Saints. They've talked about considering it. I don't think they're going to. And there's a bunch of other teams he could go to. Andy Dalton could literally go like anywhere next year, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I think it makes a lot of sense for Dalton and for Teddy, and for the Dolphins, to meet up and have him come to Miami. Dalton is kind of weird. Like, since he left the Bengals, he's always signed as a backup, but he's always started like quite a few games somehow. I'm not sure if it's good luck for him or bad luck for the team on bringing Andy Dalton in, but he always seems the starting quarterback over him always seems to like get hurt for some reason. It happened with Jameis. It happened with I think it was Justin Fields before that. It happened with Dak. It just happens like every year with Andy Dalton. He ends up getting in there and starting games. So I think he's going to be looking for a starting opportunity. Well, he could get one because he played a lot of games last year, and he's not bad. He's a solid starting quarterback. He's more like a game manager, which a lot of teams would be okay with. But I just don't have that happening, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think they would be very comfortable with Dalton as that backup, just in case Tua goes down. And I think Dalton would see the Dolphins in Miami as a location, not only a good location to go to. Everybody wants to go to Miami. It's the taxes there, outstanding. But I think he would also see this as an opportunity because Tua has been so injury prone. He'd see this as an opportunity to not only start games again next year, but with Tua's injury concerns, he could also become the starting quarterback. He could possibly even win that gig. I could see that, and I could see him wanting that. And then we talked about Skylar Thompson. I think he'd probably roll around again as the third string guy. But yeah, we move on to the Patriots. And, they have Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. Some fans, for some reason, really want Bailey Zappi to start. I get that he looked good for a few games last year, but, you got to be honest with yourself and look at the two quarterbacks. Mac Jones is better. Bailey Zappi's a good backup to have, sure, but Mac Jones is just better. And they did not have an offensive coordinator last year. Not a single one. They had a defensive coordinator, a special teams coordinator, and a head coach that was better on defense, calling plays. Excuse me. But now they brought back Bill O'Brien, and I think he's going to be a godsend for Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones will get back to being Mac Jones next year, and I think the Pats will look good again. It remains to be seen how good they'll look with what they have currently, but I think they'll be a lot better. Bailey Zappi still sticks around as the backup. They like him. And then they still have Brian Hoyer. Now, before the offseason really started going, I thought Brian Hoyer was possibly going to retire along with Chad Henne. But so far, he's sticking around. He had a pretty bad concussion last year, and he's like 38 or something like that. He's older. He's been around for a while. So I still think he could retire. But he's also got, I think, 1 year left under contract. So he might just be accepting a third string role with that contract and being like, I'll finish out this contract, get my millions, and walk away next year. I could totally see him doing that. And the Patriots really like Brian Hoyer. He's been on the Patriots for a very long time, multiple different stints on the Patriots. So they really like him, and he's also a good veteran presence for both of those young quarterbacks there. So I understand why they're keeping him around, unless they do cut him. They would save a little money, but I think they're keeping him probably. Good vet presence. So I don't think they're making much of a change here other than the coordinator. So moving on, we go to the Jets, and obviously you can see huge change here. They are the team that I think makes the most sense. I think they're really the only team that's going to make a big push for Aaron Rodgers if Aaron Rodgers becomes tradable. And that's what I have. He goes the Brett Favre route and gets traded to the Jets. Now, I think I really like Aaron Rodgers. I know a lot of people aren't fans of him. I don't know how Jets fans feel about this, but I imagine they're on the fence about it, which I get. I might be too. I'm a Giants fan. I might be on the fence if I got Rodgers, but ultimately, you have to admit, he's an extremely talented Hall of Fame quarterback. He's older. He wasn't quite as good last year, but he's still better than most of the quarterbacks in the league. He's just really talented. He's really smart. He's been around forever. He knows where to go with the football. And on top of that, Nathaniel Hackett is their new O coordinator, so he already knows the system. So it just makes sense. Everything points towards him going to the Jets, I think. Plus, I think he would love being in New York. He just seems like that type of guy. Maybe I'm wrong with that. Maybe he'd like it better in like LA, California, somewhere. He probably would, but just the most realistic option seems to be the New York Jets. And I think they're going to pick him up, and I think they're going to make a playoff push next year, which is awesome. We need the Jets back in the playoffs. I don't care what you think about the Jets. The fact they haven't been there in like 13 years now is just sad, and we need to see them back. I hate when teams go on long streaks of not being in the playoffs. It's just sad. So that's what I have for the Jets. It's very possible, and I would say probable that happens. After him, they have Joe Flacco, they have Mike White. They're both free agents. I think they're going to move on from both of them. I think they're kind of just scrubbing their roster. I think their head coach is kind of on the hot seat a little bit. It's time that they have to make the playoffs, which makes it even more realistic that they sign Aaron Rodgers. And also their head coach, Woody Johnson. He's back in the seat. I think he was in politics with Donald Trump for a while before he came back. After, I think he's been back for like 2 years now or something, but I think he wants to make a big splash now and get back in the spotlight. And so I think they're going to scrub them. They're going with Rodgers. Zach Wilson's still on his rookie contract. They could try to trade him, but he doesn't have much trade value right now, I don't think, either. Like, they might get like a second-round pick, tops, for him. But I think they'll probably just keep him and have him learn under Rodgers for a little bit and hope that maybe that fixes his issues, which it might. You never know. Zach Wilson is very talented. You can see it in his gameplay. He just makes bonehead decisions. And I don't think Nathaniel Hackett's going to really help with that, but Aaron Rodgers could. And then their third quarterback, I have them rolling with Brett Rippon from the Broncos. Like I said, they brought in Nathaniel Hackett, who was the Broncos head coach. So there's a connection there with Brett Rippon. And I think they're going to want to bring in a backup that can compete with Zach Wilson to be the backup quarterback. And Brett Rippon starting games on the Broncos and knowing Nathaniel Hackett it just made sense to bring him in and compete for the backup role. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of Brett Rippon. I could see Zach Wilson beating him out for the backup gig. But you never know. Either one of them could really win it. But yeah, that's what I have for the New York Jets. And that was the last team. So that's what I have for the AFC. And now there's only one slide left and a few quarterbacks left to talk about. That is the free agents. So these are the biggest free agents that I have, and they are all Super Bowl legends, for better or worse. Obviously, on the left, you see Nick Foles. in this situation is still a free agent. He, in my predictions, he gets cut by the Colts, and like I said in the NFC one, I read an article where Nick Foles was talking kind of like he wanted to retire, like he's really thinking about it. He's talking about wanting to retire as an Eagle. So I think there's like a good chance that he does retire this year, but I could also see him just sitting around in free agency, waiting it out, seeing if an injury comes along and he gets another contract. I could see that happening, but I could just as easily see him retiring as a Philadelphia Eagle next year. And you can see I have him in his Super Bowl MVP jersey. I'm a big Nick Foles guy. I like that dude. And on the right, you see two old school quarterbacks that have been around forever, and both of them are just not very good anymore. And it's kind of really sad. Like this picture, back in the day, they were both top of their game. Ravens in Baltimore and the Falcons in Atlanta, both seeing them as their legendary starting quarterbacks, best quarterbacks that either team has ever had. And now they're both kind of just washed up, backup type quarterbacks, and it's just kind of really sad. Flacco, Super Bowl win. Matt Ryan, Super Bowl legendary meltdown. Poor guy. I wanted him to win that one so bad, but anyway, in this situation, I got them both as free agents. I could see someone signing either of them really, just hoping that they have a little juice left to be a bridge quarterback type guy or bring some team to the playoffs. But ultimately, I didn't have that happening. Matt Ryan, if you read about, he has been seriously considering also retiring, walking away. He wants to be behind a camera. He wants to be talking about football. Apparently, I think he took his fair share of hits on the Colts last year, and he's about done. So that realistically could happen. We could see Foles and Matt Ryan both hang it up. They haven't yet, though, so they might not. They both might just stick around and see if somebody wants to bring them in for another run. But I have them both as free agents. And then Joe Flacco, my last top free agent, he started a few games for the Jets at the beginning of the year last year. And yeah, he was a little up and down, but ultimately I think he showed enough to where he could realistically be at least a backup option. It remains to be seen if he would accept that role. But since he left Baltimore, I think he has shown that he will accept a backup role as long as he sees a pathway to being the starter there. Like if the quarterback's injury prone or if the quarterback is unproven, I think he is more likely to sign with that team. But ultimately, I have him basically saying no to I think Joe Flacco could be a guy who says no to all the backup opportunities he gets, and in his mind he's like, somebody is going to go down. It happens every year. Some quarterback goes down either in the preseason or in the early parts of the season, and that's when I'm going to get my opportunity to shine. And I think that's what he's going to do. He's going to sit on his couch, watch some football for a month or so, and then some team is going to come calling, and Flacco's going to come out trying to be a hero, and he's going to end up doing terrible. Who knows? We'll see. But I like this slide. 3 legends of the game, all in their twilight stage of their career, going out. It's kind of sad, but that's the NFL for you. But yeah, so that's the end of this slide. That's the end of this PowerPoint. And that's the end of the AFC look at my predictions for their quarterback rooms. Now, again, let me know if you liked it. If you didn't like it, comment, share, subscribe, whatever. Yeah, if you liked what I did for your team, let me know. If you think something else makes more sense for your team or for another team, let me know that too. Let me know how I did in this video. If I was too loud talking, or if there's something distracting going on in the background, please let me know. I'm pretty new to this, so any help would be very appreciated. But other than that, we'll see you next time. Let me know if you want to see another video I could make for you. probably going to be NFL based. But yeah, let me know. Thank you. Goodbye.